So it's just been over a month since I got my Switch 2, and I've been using that device for probably over 60 hours, along with still using my Steam Deck, which is over 60 hours too. So I've been using both devices pretty frequently, swapping between them most days, but going back to the Steam Deck since that has my bigger library of games. And so I have some thoughts. These are just my 2 cents. So let's get into it. And I want to get off the bat first is the social aspect of these two devices. I feel like these are very different devices for social interactivity, and I learned that very quickly off the bat getting the Switch 2. I've had more multiplayer sessions on the Switch 2 than I ever have on the Steam Deck in terms of in the same room. So things like Mario Kart, playing split screen 4-player with a couple of Joy-Cons, the Pro controller and a couple of Joy-Con 1s from the Switch 1 has been fantastic. The ability to do that, I think, does add something to the experience, along with the fact that the Switch 2 comes with a holder to stand it up, like a foot stand, which I think adds quite a lot to the fact that you can do more co-op or multiplayer, same screen, and it's so easy to get up and running. So straight off the bat, that to me was a massive increase. Just being able to play co-op Mario Kart out the gate, and then along with that, just playing 2-player Mario 3D World with my partner has been great. And yes, I could have done that on the Switch 1, so can't take that away either. But new toy, right? So it gives you a reason to start doing some of these things that I may have not been doing before. And that also, so that interactivity moves into, say, the dock as well. Something that I really do like is the dock system for the Switch 2, being able to just de-dock and take it handheld and then plug it into the TV and play it that way. Where the Steam Deck, I usually it's 99% handheld. I do own the dock, a JazzX one, as you can see in the video here. But I find it a little bit finicky. It doesn't always work as intended. And so docking just doesn't always seem to do anything for me. I do use it from time to time, but with the Switch 2, putting it on the big TV is so easy. It happens far more often. And I think that's something that Valve does for the Steam Deck 2 would be a proper deck system, docking system, I should say, where there is a USB-C on the bottom for it to dock like a Switch. I think that would be a massive boon to Steam Deck 2 if that does happen. So that is a plus for the Switch 2, and the improved performance I think is really cool. If Steam doesn't want to do the improved performance from their dock, I totally understand that as well. And that means it's a bit harder for third parties to make docks. So I totally understand not doing that, but being a simpler docking system I think would go a great way for SteamOS and the Steam Deck in general. So next up would be, I want to just talk a little bit about the physical games point of view. While Switch 2 is getting a lot of dislikes for going for the game keycards, which is totally reasonable, I would prefer the games on the cart. There is first party and some third party are still going to put games on the carts. CD Projekt Red one for Cyberpunk, and all Nintendo first party are on the cart. So there is that. If you're a collector like me, I'm a smaller collector than I used to be. The ability to at least collect some first party and third party games is great. So yeah, I have a massive 700 plus game Steam library, and that's great. But sometimes just being able to physically have the game cart in your hand is quite neat. So that is something that I don't want to completely forego, because there is still physical games there, and going back, and it's quite fun to look for old Switch 1 games that I may not have picked up in the past, and finding a copy on Amazon or on Trade Me and picking up it is quite a lot of fun, every now and then. So that's my thoughts on that so far. Both systems are great. Let's talk about hardware in general. The Steam Deck OLED, that screen, and the Switch 2 LCD, there's a lot of people talking about this online, and I'm going to be honest, if you're playing on one device and you're not playing on the other, it is what it. You're just not going to pay that much attention. If you're having fun, that's all that matters. In my opinion, it's not unplayable, right? Like, it's not like you can't see. It's not like going back to a Game Boy or a Game Boy Advance without a backlight. Like, it's not like that. Like, it just works. You can just play them. I mean, yeah, of course OLEDs are nicer, but it's not the end of the world in my personal opinion. I've been playing Pokemon Violet, Mario Kart, and a range of other games like Diablo 3, and they look great. So I don't really have a problem with the screen being LCD. If they do release an OLED, of course I'll get the OLED. That's just how it goes for us nerds, right? In this environment. But for normies, it's fine. Like, it really doesn't matter. And then talking about other hardware, performance-wise, one thing I do enjoy with the Switch 2, which I do enjoy tinkering with the Steam Deck, is just putting in a game and playing it. This channel is built around doing guides for video games, like to make them work or to fix problems or to add mods, and that is fun. Like, I enjoy doing that, so I don't mind making those videos for everyone else. And it's really fun to get, say, Oblivion OG running on a Steam Deck with proper controls and proper graphics and the updated, the unofficial mod and all that. Like, that's awesome. I love doing that. But there also is a nice simplicity to just chucking in a cart, playing the game, not worrying about performance mode, not worrying about, graphics mode, while those options are there. And say something like Cyberpunk, things like Mario Kart and the Zelda re-releases just run at 60 at their set resolutions, and it's great. You just play them. I really do like that, and but the Steam Deck having that viability of changing settings is also great. So that's no negative or winner there. They're on par, I think, performance wise. I'm a handheld gamer now. I don't play on my PC, and that leads me to another point, which is being able to play games on the Switch 2 which won't run on the Steam Deck. A prime example of that coming up would be Star Wars Outlaws. That game does not work on the Steam Deck. But it's coming to Switch 2. So I'll be like, well, I'll pick up the Switch 2 version of Outlaws, because even though that game may have middling reviews, that's fine. I actually just want to try it out. So that gives me a way to play the game without having to wait until a Steam Deck 2 or buy another handheld in terms of a Xbox LAX or something like that, where it may run okay, but not, while the Switch 2 version will be pared back, that's perfectly fine. If you've been playing on Steam Deck since launch, you're used to paring back graphics, right? Like, that's just part and parcel of handheld PC gaming. And so I don't feel like that's going to be any different on the Switch 2. So there is games like that where it's probably better to play it there. One comparison I haven't looked at is if Hogwarts Legacy runs better on Steam Deck or on Switch 2. That's something I'd love to have a look at. I do own it on Steam Deck, but I do not own Hogwarts Legacy on Switch, so I don't know whether I want to buy it again. But yeah, so that's something there that I think is quite good, having these two systems side by side, as they can fulfill different categories of gaming. So specifically on some of the third-party games that may not run on Steam Deck. Another example would be Fortnite. Like, you can play that on your Switch 2, where originally, if you had an OLED Steam Deck, you'd have to then install Windows, and it didn't have drivers, and it was just a real pain in the butt. So having the option to just use the Switch 2 with that beautiful Pro controller, I think is a win. So there is definitely some wins and losses here for both machines. But then Rogue Trader, that I'm playing currently on the Steam Deck, is not available on the Switch. So, it's great. I think this is a good way of these two systems can coexist, and they fulfill different niches. They've got NSI, of course, with the back compat with all their older systems. I realise that's a paid subscription. And people are complaining a little bit about lag on the GameCube. I haven't really had any problems. I've been playing a little bit of Soul Calibur 2 and all that good stuff, and I just have a good time. So and of course that gets patched. I know they patched N64 on the Nintendo Switch, so I'm not too worried about any of that. Those few things will clear up. And of course, people will always bring up emulation of Switch games on a Steam Deck. Well, yes, that's a thing, and I've done it. I think it's a very, very, not complicated, but it's a very time-consuming thing to do, and getting backups of your own games is really hard, and so people go down the route of just downloading them illegally, and those websites are not great to work with. So I've kind of moved past that now, and I'll just buy Switch games or Switch 2 games because I can't be bothered with that. It's just too much wasted time when I could have just been playing it. So I have some really good thoughts on both of these systems, and I don't think one outdoes the other. Power-wise, the Switch 2 is using so many less volts, but it's got a smaller battery, so it kind of works out with the OLED in times of battery use. It's quite funny how that works out. To fix the OLED, they just smashed in a massive battery, and then on the Switch 2, they were like, we're going to be ultra power efficient. And a great point was on Digital Foundry. They had the power wattage usage of Cyberpunk on both systems, and like Cyberpunk on Switch 2 is like under 10 watts, where it's like double that on the Steam Deck. So there is but the batteries kind of equal each other out, so it's quite funny to see. And then finally, my last little thing I'd like to talk about is the Pro Controller. I can't stop talking about the Pro Controller, but I also, on the Steam Deck side, the fact that you can just Bluetooth any controller with it, is a win there. So you have that availability of different controllers for the Steam Deck, where Switch 2, you're locked into using old Joy-Cons, new Joy-Cons, and the Pro controllers. But the Pro controllers are absolutely fantastic pieces of kit. And so my final thoughts on these two devices is that they can coexist. There is a little bit of overlap there, of course. So if you're only in the market to buy one of these two devices, I can't make that decision for you. That's something you have to weigh up, whether you enjoy first-party Nintendo or you want the massive Steam library. I do think with the sales being so strong with Switch 2, you're going to see a lot of third-party coming to Switch 2, and you also have the massive back catalogue of Switch 1 games for the Switch 2, which all run better. So you really have this, and if you have NSO, which allows you to access a ton of older titles from Nintendo and Sega, so there is that as well to think about, where on the Steam Deck you would have to do manual emulation, which is, a little bit of work, but it's not impossible, right? So, and you have it as it's basically a personal PC tablet. I've played Dungeons and Dragons on it. I've played some D&D Beyond on there. I took it to a friend's house and it worked a treat. So you get that added bonus of it being a PC, well, not a PC, a Linux-based handheld. So, yeah. But in the comments below, let me know what you guys have been thinking about your Switch 2s and your Steam Deck OLEDs, and if you have bothered to get both like me, or if you're just sticking with one, or you're contemplating what you're going to get, and if this video has helped in any way, shape or form, I'd love to know in the comments below. So that's my 2 cents on these two devices. I think they're really great. And the Switch 2's got a long life ahead of it, so I'll be curious to see how it goes in a couple more years. And give me Metro Prime, hurry up. Alright guys, catch you later.